The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. So this is a river? The river, corrected the rat. And you really live by the river? What a jolly life. By it, and with it, and on it, and in it, said the rat. It's brother and sister to me, and aunts and company, and food and drink, and, naturally, washing. It's my world, and I don't want any other. What it hasn't got is not worth having, and what it doesn't know is not worth knowing.
This is the River Medway, and this is a bridge obviously on the River Medway. Not the bridge that shapes me, that gives me bad memories of rivers. That's the one on the high street, you know, the one I'm talking about. I was 19 years old. I was at my girlfriend's house. She lived about a 5-minute walk away. We just had Sunday lunch at home, and afterwards I'd nicked a yoghurt, and my mum phoned their house. No mobile phones in those days. I thought, oh, I'm in trouble with my mum because I had that yoghurt. He said, Neil, you need to come home now, please. I said, can't you just tell me on the phone? He said, no, you need to come home now. I thought it was definitely the yoghurt. When I got home, she said, you need to sit down. She said, your friend, and I won't say his name, but your friend, drowned in the River Medway last night. He slipped off the bridge and got caught in the reeds. He was 20 years old. It was an awful waste of life. Sometimes rivers can be really harsh reminders of the fragility of life. But rivers can also be really positive experiences. The River Medway for me can be a positive experience. I remember canoeing when I was in the Boys Brigade as a teenager. We flipped us over and we had to try and get out and get back up out of the water without drowning. It was a good, fun place to be, canoeing on the river with the Boys Brigade. Which river is this, guys? Medway, that's right, it is the River Medway. And the River Medway divides and unites Tonbridge. The word Tonbridge actually comes from two old Anglo-Saxon words. The first one is tun, which means enclosure or farmstead, and the other one is brick. You spell that, look, B-R-Y-C-G. How is that a word? But brick means bridge or causeway. And this river, it unites and divides Tonbridge. I'm told, I haven't been able to find it in a history book, but I'm told that when there was an outbreak of disease here many hundreds of years ago, it really broke out in the south end of Tonbridge, and the people at the north end blocked off the bridge. You know that bridge where my friend drowned? Do you remember the one I've taken you to? Near the castle? And they blocked it off, so the people in the south said, you stay there and keep your disease away. So there's been this tension, this north-south divide. But Tonbridge is here because there's a tongue-shaped bit of land that is slightly higher, that rises above the river, that goes from Quarry Hill in the south to Shibburn Road in the north, that unites it. And the only block in the middle was the river where they put the bridge. So it does divide, but Tonbridge also unites, and it's all based around the River Medway. There are so many rivers in the Bible. Rivers are the bookends of the story of the Bible, with the four great branches of the water that divide from the river in the Garden of Eden, and the river of the water of life in the book of Revelation that flows crystal clear from the throne of God down the main street of the New Jerusalem. There's the River Nile, where there's Egyptian slavery. And there's the Jordan River that Joshua and the people of Israel crossed into the Promised Land. And that's also where Jesus was baptised by his cousin John the Baptist.
Belden C. Lane wrote, scientists found a huge river running directly beneath the Amazon, 2.5 miles underground, emptying like its surface twin into depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Some rivers, like the Gascoyne in the Western Australia, flow above ground for part of the year and below ground for the rest. Rivers relish mystery.
Rivers do indeed relish mystery, and no river, in my opinion, is more mysterious than the one we read about in Genesis 32 22 to 32. That is a mysterious story. That night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, the river, he sent them over with all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon.
Some quiz questions about the passages.
Bring it on. What's the first question?
What was the ford like in Jabbok?
What was the Jabbok ford like? It was 20 miles north of the Dead Sea and over 60 miles long, so it was a long river, and it was the dividing line. You remember how we said the River Medway divided Tonbridge? It was the dividing line between the Ammonite and the Gadite territory. Next question, who's that from?
Me. Why is Jacob left alone?
Why was Jacob left alone? Well, really, he's in the hands of his brother Esau, because he really diddled his brother Esau many, many years earlier, and he now feels exposed to him. So he's turned to God already in prayer, just before the passage that we read together. But maybe he's being crafty again, and maybe he'd sent his wives and his children and his maids and all of his stuff ahead of him, thinking, well, if Esau reacts badly to them and kills them, then I'm going to leg it. But then when he does encounter Esau, after the encounter with the being at the river, he actually goes ahead of his wives and his maids and his children in chapter 33 verse 3, and he meets his brother Esau first, so there's definitely a change in him. Next question.
Who is the man?
The man, the one he's wrestling with by the river Jabbok.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't want to be seen when it comes to the light of day. We're not really sure. Some people have said that he was a phantom of the night. Some have said he was a demon. Some have said he might have been Esau or an angel or the holiness of God whose face must not be seen. What we do know is that he's revealed gradually in the story. He has human limitations, but also an awesome reserve of power. Next question.
Why could the man not overpower Jacob?
Why could the man not overpower Jacob? I think that this shows Jacob's ambivalence towards God. At times he's loving and at other times hostile, at times defiant and at other times dependent. And I think that the man that Jacob is fighting with allows him to fight with him because he wants to see what his true colours were. Next question.
Why does the man wrench Jacob's hip?
It is to just slow down his pride and to challenge his stubbornness. It's to say to him that you have not got all the answers. Don't you find sometimes when physically you're hurt, it makes you realise that you are not infallible as a human being. And it's also lasting proof of the reality of this struggle that he had with this angelic being. Next question.
Why the change of name from Jacob to Israel?
Well, Jacob was a crook, and his name literally means heel grabber or overreacher. He's always trying to get things that aren't really his. Twice he'd conned his brother Esau. Once he'd taken advantage of his blind old father Isaac, and he outdid his double-crossing father-in-law Laban. Israel means may God strive, persevere for him. Or it means God rules, or it means God preserves, or it means God protects. It's showing us the profound change in the character of Jacob. He's gone from being a heel grabber, an overreacher, a double crosser, to someone who says, It's God who rules over my life and protects me and preserves me. Next question.
Why does Jacob want to know the rest of his name?
Well, at that time there were some magical religions that said if you knew a person's name, you could have some kind of power over them. Also, other people believed that if you knew the name of your God, you also had some degree of control over that person and that God. Next question.
Why does Jacob name the place Peniel?
Peniel. Well, it might have been Peniel with a U instead of an I beforehand, because it was a peculiarly shaped rock that looks like a face. And the word literally means the face of God. So it could be that Jacob looked at it and thought, oh my life, that looks like a face. But also it could mean that he thought, I've really met God in a powerful way here. And the final question, please.
Did Jacob meet God in this passage?
Well, we know that Jacob wrestled with something or someone, probably an angel, I think. And often in the Bible, experiences with angels were linked to encounters with God. Often in the Old Testament, like in Judges chapter 13, people would say, I've seen the angel of the Lord, when they had seen the face of God. The angel leaves before dawn to protect Jacob. Jacob's life isn't just spared, his life is transformed. Jacob emerges from this encounter where he meets God broken, named and blessed. He's entrusted with some of God's power. You now have a duty, Jacob, you now have a duty, Israel, to do great things for me. This encounter was defeat and victory in one huge wrestling match. Did I answer those questions all right?
Yes. Now I will get your prize.
Thank you. What is my prize?
These lovely flowers.
I've got some flowers. Thank you very much. One of my favourite authors is the minister Frederick Buechner. He writes theological books and also novels as well as memoirs. And he wrote one novel called The Son of Laughter, which is about Jacob, Isaac. And we read the final paragraph on the chapter where Jacob wrestled with the angelic being. Megan, Evie rather, take it away.
The sun's rim was just starting to show over the top of the gorge by the time I finally crossed the Jabbok. Bands of gold fanned across the sky. I staggered through the rocky shallows, one hip dipping deep at each new step, and my head bobbing. It is the way I have walked ever since.
The title of that chapter is The Face of Light. Jacob met the face of light, the face of God in this encounter, and it changed him forever. And it happened by a river. How old are you now, Amos?
8.
8 years old. Well, and do you know which football team this is for, this top?
No.
It's Sporting Gijón in Spain. And your brother Noah, your big brother, who's taller than me now, he had this top when we were in Spain for 5 weeks camping as a family. You were only about 1, you were a chubby little monster at that time, not the big rugged boy you are now. And when Noah had this top on, we went to a monastery. Monastery is a religious place that's been there for hundreds of years. And we were able to see a piece of the real cross. They told us it was the real cross, but we knew it wasn't. But at that time, Noah was only your age and he couldn't understand it. And when we were back at our campsite and I was cooking tea, we had rice, chorizo, tomatoes, peppers. It was delicious. And Noah kept saying to me, but this isn't the real cross, is it? How could they've got it here? I thought Jesus died in Jerusalem. And he kept asking, and I said, Noah, are you friends with Jesus? And he said, no. And I said, would you like to be friends with Jesus? Because he really loves you. He said, yeah, I would. And so I said to Joe, can you keep cooking? Noah and I are just going to go for a walk. And we went for a walk into the next field, and he had his catapult with him. He's probably given that to you now. And has he given that to you? Good. You don't break windows with it, do you? You don't get caught breaking windows with it, do you? Good. And we went over into this other field and we sat down by a river. Now, it wasn't quite like this one because it was on a mountain, so it was fast flowing and it was crystal clear, not kind of browny green like this one. And we sat down by it and I prayed a really simple prayer with Noah where he asked Jesus to be his friend. He said sorry for the things he'd done wrong. It went something like this: Dear Jesus, I'm sorry for the things I've done wrong, and I thank you that you forgive me and that you love me. I want you to be at the centre of my life, and I thank you that you'll never leave me. And after he'd prayed that, I said to him, Noah, look at this river. This river is your river. This is your river where you became friends with Jesus, and he will never let you go. It's a special place for you. And it's proved to be that way for the last 7 or so years. Because you see, what we've learned in our story today about Jacob is that God lets us wrestle with him. Might be by a river, might be anywhere, but he lets us wrestle with him, and in that wrestling he transforms us and makes us more like Jesus each and every day.